Welcome to Teams Tuesday, a podcast about mastering the best about what other people have already figured out. Teams Tuesday focuses on insights and lessons that never expire. You will walk away from every episode with actionable insights that help you get better results and be more productive.
This was about as bizarre and easy as it gets. The client just couldn't make up their mind.
I feel like we had top.
Went from a project of 20 weeks to just 2.
The DevOps was a cultural shift.
This is Teams Tuesday with your host, Peter Ward.
Good afternoon, good evening, or even good morning, depending on where you are. My name is Peter Ward. I'm the host of Teams Tuesday. I'm located in New York, and we've got yet another MVP as our guest speaker today. Krunal Trivedi, I believe that's correct. Did I pronounce your last name correct?
Yeah, it's Krunal Trivedi.
Okay, very cool. And you're actually in Ahmedabad. So quick question for you. We've actually met at the SharePoint Saturday. We had 2 SharePoint Saturdays in Ahmedabad. Am I correct? That was at Gujarat University. Was that correct?
No, it was some Ganpat University, right?
Okay.
It was the place what we used. It was for Ganpat University, yeah. Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that was good.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and we met for both of those events.
That's right. I was the keynote actually for one of those actually 2 years ago. All right. So you are a Microsoft certified trainer for MCT-India. Just tell me a little bit about yourself and your role
Yes.
at MTC.
Yes. So I'm a Krunal Trivedi, friends, and I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. Being an MCT Microsoft certified trainer, I deliver corporate sessions to various IT industry in India, in abroad, and in my daily job, I am involved actively in these technical trainings on the Microsoft stacks. So I started with the .NET framework, and then eventually I went for this microservices architecture with .NET Core, and then this Microsoft Azure. So now actively past 4 years, I'm working with Azure. So here I help organizations to get certified their employees on the Azure, and then I provide them technical trainings on Azure. Even I help them to prepare architecture to lift and shift their workloads from on-premises to Azure. That's what I do in my daily life.
I see. All part of the digital transformation to the cloud, I suspect.
Right.
Okay. Now I always ask sort of like guest speakers on the podcast. So tell me something about yourself that people don't know about you. And you've said you're an introvert and you don't like to talk much, which is totally opposite to your profession. So from meeting you in person a few times, I find that very difficult to believe.
That's why, and that's what you want. That's what your question is, right? You want to know something that's people generally don't know or don't believe, right? So being a trainer, every week I am on flight, right? I have to go to various cities of India and sometimes even various countries of the globe, right? And whole day from morning 9 to 6, you are in the training room and you are talking with participants. And then even sometimes you are just doing podcast at evening 10:45, like that's what I'm doing right now, right? And then you are writing blogs and you are preparing videos and all. So in the free time, right, I would like to just sit quiet. I just need me time over there, right? I don't get involved with everyone, let's go and chill out and all, right? So I'm little bit introvert in that case, right? And sometimes people feel that being a trainer, you are very talkative, but I'm talkative because I'm getting paid for it, right? But out of my job role, I'm a bit quiet. So yeah, that's what
I understand. Ahmedabad, you've got a new cricket ground now. Do you follow cricket?
Yeah, I'm fond of cricket, and that new cricket ground is just 5 minutes away from my home. So when even they're on the lights, I can see from the balcony of my home.
Fantastic. What was your last challenging project and why?
And last time I was working with some projects where I have to help organization to lift and shift their workloads to Azure over there, right? And sometimes the team was not aware of Azure that much. We had lots of restrictions over there, right? Like data restrictions, they don't want to cross the boundary over there. So we need to go to hybrid architecture. Sometimes the data was used by government, so even they want to have it in the particular region over there, right? So it was pretty challenging in terms of practical feasibility also, as far as the knowledge of the employees was also limited. So we need to put some extra efforts, right? So to train them and then to get the project shifted on the cloud.
Right. Okay. What are the sort of like restrictions that people just don't understand about shifting processes and data to the cloud?
Right. See, when you are processing your data to the cloud, so sometimes we found out that when you are running with the on-premises, right, you have lots of servers provision. Sometimes just for a POC, you provision one server, and then you don't take that server in count, right? And end of the day, your organizations are having lots of unused servers. Now, how to remove those servers, then how to prepare the cluster of the servers, which are very important to you. And when you're talking about the data, right? So say one thing people don't understand, they say when we host data in the cloud, we are just going to pay for the storage. We are going to pay for the throughput, right? But they don't understand that when you take data back from the cloud, you are also getting charged for that thing, right? So that cost also you should keep in mind. And sometimes that you need end-to-end data transcriptions over there. Sometimes you need to add some extra layer of security in case of that VM disk encryption if you are using SQL server on the virtual machines over there, right? Data masking that you need to follow over there. So lots of security related stuff sometimes people forget when they are putting it in the cloud, because when it is in on premises, if you miss one layer, that is still fine. But on the cloud, when you put your data, you have to think about DDoS protection. You need to think about cross-site scripting. You need to think about some malicious activity, SQL injections, lots of things you need to consider over there.
I suspect there's a huge fear of pushing stuff into the cloud, just psychologically.
Yeah, psychologically, and sometimes they're not aware of all the services which are available in a cloud, right? Once they get familiar with all the services available with the cloud, with the Microsoft Azure, and they know it very well, then it's easy for them to decide.
Right. Okay. And okay, so you've been working with Azure. Can you describe like a complete train wreck Azure project that you worked on? Right. What did you learn?
Lots of things. Actually, it's totally different, right? How you provision, like, when we teach Azure and we just tell about, okay, this is what scaling is very easy in cloud, right? And no doubt scaling is very easy. And that time, participants, my project manager, my architecture was, okay, man, just go with one very premium range server. So no need to scale at all, right? We just go with high end server from the beginning. And they say, hey, we are not going to pay, right? Just go with this, go with this. So lots of things we have to keep in mind, because in cloud, very few services are free, right? Second thing is, there is a shared responsibility between you and the cloud vendor, right? So what you are going to manage, what cloud vendors are going to manage, how are you going to, if you are going to establish hybrid connectivity, then are you going to use VPN or you are going to use express routes? So lots of things are there that was sometimes theoretical to us, right? But when we work with the project, we understand, we implement it, and then sometimes we talk with Microsoft folks over there when we stuck, right? So yeah, lots of things. It was a totally new ocean for us, right, to swim in.
That's true. We've like at Soho, we've moved clients from on-prem to the cloud, and they're obviously a little bit surprised, actually, a little bit about the costs of Azure, even though we tell them all this up front, so there's no surprises. They're always like, oh my God, look at these bills. How do we reduce these bills? And someone's like, this is pretty much what we told you going into this. But it's not just the cost. Like, you now basically, you don't need a full-time person managing this. Okay, so look at that.
Right, and along with, or you can say, apart from this Azure services consumption, right, the client must know cost management techniques, right? Even the client must know the governance policies over there. The organization must have some compliances, right, to establish policies and blueprints and all those things. So that is very important, right? And sometimes they just want to shift just a database on the cloud or the front end to the cloud, but they are unaware of all those services which are very helpful to them.
Right, absolutely. That's almost like the sticker shock, actually, I think people actually do. Now, obviously, you've been working with Azure, okay, for a number of years. Like, where do you see the trend? Where do you sort of see it going here?
Right. So if you personally think nowadays we are using Azure for big data kind of stuff, right? Data bricks and data lakes. Also, we are using Azure heavily for artificial intelligence and machine learning over there, right? Cognitive services, which is fantastic thing, right? Which is also putting Azure ahead in the race. And obviously this infrastructure as a service and some SaaS-based solutions where we can connect Azure with our Microsoft 365 services as an entire project suites, right? It's very trending nowadays.
Right. Okay. Okay, so this is time for the demo or the PowerPoint. Okay, so what's the kind of demo you're going to show us then? Load balancing?
Yes, so I'm going to talk about various Azure networking related services where I'm going to talk about Azure Firewall, Azure Load Balancer, Application Gateway, and the Traffic Manager. So we are going to see, say, various services are available to distribute the traffic in Azure, right? But which one comes at which level, or which one we should choose, or in which scenario, which one is best fitted. So all those things we are going to discuss.
Understood. All right, so take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much. So yeah, I'm going to share the screen. So we are going to start with Azure Networking Marines, and as we discuss, I'm going to talk about Azure Firewall, which is a firewall as a service offering by Microsoft Azure. We are going to talk about two types of load balancers, the public load balancers, you can say external load balancer, or private, or say internal load balancer. We are going to talk about Application Gateway, which we can also run with Web Application Firewall mode. And we are going to talk about Azure Traffic Manager here. Right now, if I start with Azure Firewall, right? So we know firewall is heavily used in the industry to prevent malicious traffic entering to your network over there, right? So Azure Firewall serves the same purpose. It is a managed service that is highly available, right? And one of the best features of firewall is like it's auto scaling, right? And it also securing your Azure network centrally by directing and inspecting traffic over there, right? Say rather than being on a singular device, you can put Azure Firewall as a collection of resources managed by Azure, right? So these underlying resources include load balancing, VMs, virtual networks, right? And you are not going to manage all of these things. All of these things will be managed by Azure internally, right? Say why firewall exists. That is the one important thing we should understand over here, right? So as a customer, when we move to the cloud, so redesigning the digital workload, network security is in the top of the mind and the key enabler, right? So most enterprise customers require some application level outbound traffic filtering to enable secure access to various internet resources, right? Additionally, sometimes customers need to segment and log access between cloud workloads and in hybrid connection. So Microsoft found that these customers are struggling while adopting the traditional next generation firewall solution in the cloud. And instead, they were looking for the cloud native, auto scalable, high available solutions, right, which help them. And that's why Microsoft has come up with this Azure Firewall is as a cloud native firewall service, right? And it offerings, and you can see it offers lots of services where even we can go for DevOps approach along with this Azure Firewall, right? And this Azure Firewall service supports both application and network level filtering rules, right? And it is integrated with Microsoft Threat Intelligence feed. So here they know what are the malicious IP addresses and domains and all those things. So you get the benefit over there, right? When I talk about the Azure Firewall architecture diagrams, right? So here you can see that here I establish Azure Firewall in hub and spoke architecture, right? So firewall is a hub here. And then I'm having two spoke connected with this firewall. And all the internet-based traffic is denied by default in Azure Firewall. And then I can define some rules. Depending on the rules, the particular traffic could be allowed. Also, same firewall I can use to connect to my on-premises network, right? So it is in hub and spoke. I am having three scopes. Two spokes are here in this cloud and one is here in this on-premises. Then all of these spokes are connected with this firewall over there. It works on layer 3 to layer 7 of your OSI model. And like, you know, it is by default supported by Microsoft Threat Intelligence. They know malicious IPs and FQDNs over there, right? And as we talk about the features of the firewall, right, it provides a built-in high availability. So it is built in, so no extra load balancers are required and there is nothing you need to configure, right? You get SLA, it is highly available up and running over there. Also, firewall can be configured during deployment to span across multiple zones, right? So we can span our spokes into multiple zones. So it supports availability zones also, right? If I talk about cloud scalability, so we can Azure Firewall can be scaled out as much as you need to accommodate changing network traffic flows, right? And also we can limit outbound HTTP traffic or Azure SQL traffic to a specified list of fully qualified domain names. Say, okay, these domain names are totally blacklisted kind of thing, right? And we can also define network traffic filtering rules here. And we can also add service tags. So it represents the group of IP address prefix to help minimize complexity, right? So you can't create your own service tag. You cannot specify which IP address are included within the tag. So here Microsoft manage address prefix, right, encompassed by service tags. And it also supports threat intelligence. So it is threat intelligence is a filtering which can be enabled for your firewall to alert and deny traffic from the malicious IP address. Even here you can go for two approaches. In one approach, it will just send you alert, but it allows the traffic. But in second one, it will send you alert and denies the traffic. So we can go for any of this mode which is available, right? And these IP address and domains which are blocked or which are considered as a malicious are directly sourced from the Microsoft Threat Intelligence feed, which is periodically updated over there. Right? Yeah. If I talk about the second service, it is the load balancer. So we know the load balancing refers to evenly distributing traffic across a group of backend servers. And here Azure Load Balancer operates at layer 4 of the OSI model. And it would be a single point of contact for your clients. So when any request comes from the internet, it will go to the load balancer first. And now the load balancer is going to distribute the traffic to the backend pools over there, right? And for that, we are going to define load balancing rules over there. We are going to create backend pools. We are going to prepare health props. And we have two types of load balancers here. One is known as public load balancer, also known as external load balancer, while another one is say private or say internal load balancer, right? Say when I talk about these two types of load balancers, so generally when you are going to load balance internet-based traffic, so therefore that you are going to use public load balancer, right? But when you want to balance the load from one subnetwork to another subnetwork within your own network, so that time we are going to use the external load balancer over there. Sorry, internal load balancer over there. My bad. So if you take a look on this diagram, so your request is coming from the internet, it will be handled by this public load balancer, right? And this public load balancer is going to forward the request to either this VM1 or VM2 or VM3. You can consider this one as a web tier or say front end tier, right? And now here we are having internal load balancer also. So from any of these virtual machine, now the request will go to internal load balancer, and which is going to forward the request to my backend pools over here. This is what say my backend servers, my database or some business tiers over there. So here I'm having public load balancer, here I'm having internal load balancers over there. So two load balancers are available. But here you are just going to balance the traffic depending on some HTTP rules and ports over there. Port mapping would be there, right? Also, when we define the health prop, so at every given interval, load balancer is going to check the health of the machines inside the backend pools, and say, for example, consecutively 2 times or 3 times, depending on your value. If machine is not responding properly, it will mark that machine as a unhealthy machine, right? If I talk about third one, it is application gateway. We already know what is firewall. We know now load balancer, and now third one is application gateway. So application gateway is the step up from the load balancer, right? Your load balancers, traditional load balancers, operate only at the transport layer, which is the layer 4 of the OSI model, right? And route traffic based on the source IP address and the port. For example, if you see here, what I can say, if request is coming from this front end subnet, this web tier subnet, this IP address range, they can come to my backend subnet machines, and here they can access only say port number 1433, which is running SQL Server over there. Right. It is what protocol and port mapping over there. We can allow or deny. Also from the backend machines, like I can just block some of the traffic depending on the rule. But when I talk about the application gateway, it allows distributions of the traffic based on URLs, right? So here you can see, you can consider this example. Say here I am having 2 server pool. image pool and the video pool. In image pool, I'm having 2 machines, and in video pool, I'm having 2 machines, right? And here I can use application firewall, which runs on the OSI level layer 7, right? So when any requests come, and it is a contessor.com/images, it will forward the request to any of the instance from the image server pool. And if request is there for contessor.com/ you can say video, it will go to this video server pool here and any of the instance of the video server pool. So it is what one is the URL based routing, which is supported over here. I can also use this application gateway for SSL termination, right? Say after SSL termination. So here at the application gateway level, I am going to terminate my SSL or TLS, right? And after the traffic would flows unencrypted to the backend server. So here, like, this feature allows your web server to be unburdened from the encryption and decryption overhead. But sometimes, again, it depends upon your scenario that encrypted communication to the server is not acceptable. But if it is acceptable in your case, you can use this application gateway as a SSL or TLS termination, right? Also, it supports auto scaling. So application gateway, we have standard V2 supports. And here we can scale up or down based on the changing traffic load patterns, right? And here you don't need to add the counts of the load balancer application gateway manually. It also supports zone redundancy. We are also in static IP address. And as we discussed, it supports web application firewall. So again, web application firewall is a service which provides centralized protection of your web applications from the common exploits. Right? Say nowadays we know web applications are having increasingly targets of malicious attacks, right? And which exploits common known vulnerabilities, right? Like SQL injection or cross-site scripting attacks, right? So we want to prevent them. So that time I can use application gateway with the web application firewall. So it will prevent such attacks. We can prevent these attacks in the code, but if I try to prevent this attack in my application code, I have to put lots of efforts and patching and maintenance and monitoring at the layers of application topology, right? So here centralized web application firewall helps make security management much simpler, right? And gives better assurance to the application administrators against threats or intrusions, right? Say a web application firewall supports, it can also react to a security threat faster, right? And any application gateway can be converted to web application firewall mode at any given point of time, right? When I talk about this multiple site hosting, right? So here, like, I can have only one domain like contessor.com, right? And which internally I can map to the multiple sites over there. So when request comes to contessor.com, and then it can go to shop.contessor.com, or it can go to say products.contessor.com. So this way I can have multiple site hostings possible. But again, here you have to take care of ordering, right? Suppose you are going to use a wildcard.contessor.com. It should be always there as a last. And then shop.contessor.com should be in top of the wildcard. Otherwise, it will never go to shop.contessor.com, right? It also supports session affinity and connection draining, right? So if I talk about, say, connection draining, so it helps you achieve graceful removal of the backend pool members during the planned service updates. So suppose in the backend pool, in image server pool, I'm having 2 machines and I want to update a machine over there. I want to update the operating system over there. So using connection draining, right? I can remove one machine from the backend pool very easily, and then I can again reattach it over there, right? It's very powerful functionality of this application gateway. And then we are having, as we discussed, we can use it like web application firewall also. So it is a centralized firewall which is going to secure your Azure hosted workloads as well as your on-premises workload or other cloud hosted workload from the public traffic and the malicious activities over there, right? And no need to maintain all of these things in code, right? So here the Azure Application Gateway will take care of it, right? So in short, this web application firewall helps your security management, helps you to manage your security very easily, right? Of your workloads and of your applications over there, be it in on-premises or be it on Azure, right? And the last service what I'm going to talk about is Azure Traffic Manager, right? So we know load balancer, we know application gateway, we know firewall, and now it is a traffic manager, right? So Azure Traffic Manager is a DNS-based traffic load balancer, right? And this service allows you to distribute traffic to your public-facing application across globe, right, in various Azure regions. So suppose you can have two instances of your web application. One is running in, say, Southeast Asia, and one is running in Central US. And if you want to distribute the traffic between these two instances of the web application, so that time you can go for Traffic Manager. And for the Traffic Manager here, we have various methods, right? We have various patterns what we can attach to route the traffic. So for example, if I go for, say, performance method, so in that case, if request is coming from the Europe, right, so it will by default forward it to the Central US region, right? Here we'll think about the latency, right? If I set the priority method, so here I can say the Central US as the highest priority, and say Southeast Asia is the lowest priority. So all the requests would be first redirected to Central US. But if the Central US application is down, in that case, it would be forwarded to Southeast Asia. So here,
so with this traffic manager, we just intelligently say, look, there's a lot of traffic coming in from Asia. OK, well, the US is not, i.e. during the day, here we are like at night in Asia, Asia is going to be quite quiet. Can it basically intelligently say, like, let's just route requests? You know, like at the moment, America's particularly busy because it's daylight hours. Can it intelligently shift requests, so we say, from the US data center to the India?
So in that case, it depends upon the method. It depends upon the routing method what you have used, right? So suppose here you have used the priority method, right? So depending on the priority method, even say Asia region is quiet, but the US region is highest priority, it will always send it to the US region, right? It will, if US region is down, then only it will go to the Asia region. Then if you talk about the weighted method, right? And here you can say 80% of request should go to US, and 20% of request should go to, say, Asia region. So here it's going to decide it intelligently, right? So 80% of request will go to US. So now say request 1 is redirected to US, second request is redirected to US. Now third one, it will redirect you to, say, Asia in that case, right? Performance method is always about your latency, right? From which region the request is coming. Now, if request is coming from, say, for example, Europe region, it will take it to the Central US. But if request is coming from, say, China region, so it will take it to the Southeast Asia region over there, right? And if I talk about geographic, here, like, you know, you can map, like if request is coming from, say, for example, North America and, say, Canada. So that time I want to redirect this request to this particular region. And if request is coming from Southeast Asia, Asia and Europe, it should go to this particular region. So here we can combine it. And then even we can define the multi-value and the subnets, right? So in the multi-value, we have multiple methodologies, values available over here, what we can use. For example, say if you are having IPv4 and IPv6 address, right? So that time you can go for multi-value. And here when query is received for this profile, it is going to find out all healthy endpoints, right? So ultimately how it works, you are going to hit the DNS of the traffic manager. And then DNS of the traffic manager is internally going to forward the request to one of the healthy endpoint, right? Now suppose you are having multiple healthy endpoint. So multi-value will return all the healthy endpoints, and then the request will be forwarded to any of these one, right? So now here again, Peter, as according to your question, if you go for multi-value, right? And if you are having Asia also healthy and say Central US is also healthy. So now Traffic Manager will decide on which endpoint it wants to forward this request, right? But in priority, it would be always forwarded based on the priority. In weightage, it would be based on the weightage. Performance would be on the latency, right? Geography, like that you are going to combine. Now multi-value, all healthy endpoints would be written. And then Traffic Manager will forward it to the particular region and internally.
So in terms of the regions, like, so for example, last Sunday we had the Super Bowl in the US. Okay, so certain websites will probably be hit quite heavily depending on the commercials. So I know you've got like East, Central and West. Can you break down even further? Can it go down by city, or is it by geographical region?
No, it is not possible over there. I think when we go to the geographic, we get these countries like, you know, Asia and North America and Canada and like that. But we are not getting cities over there.
Right. OK. Good to know.
Right. And if you go for the subnet, it is just like, you know, select a particular subnet traffic routing method to map sets of end users IP address range to a specific endpoint. So when a request is received, the endpoint will be written will be the one of the map for the request source IP address. So here what I can say, if request is coming from the particular subnet, right? So that time it should be redirected to the particular endpoint over there. It is something like that, right?
Understood.
And yeah, and now here if I talk about this diagram, right, it is very important to understand. Here you can see in one diagram we have covered almost all these load balancing techniques. So here first of all you can see I'm having a traffic manager. So if request is coming, depending on my traffic manager routing methods, say for example I have used a performance method, and this is what my Southeast Asia region, and I'm sending a request from India. So it will hit the traffic manager, and traffic manager will forward the request to now Southeast Asia region here because of the performance method. And as the request is coming from the India, it will be forwarded to the Southeast Asia region. Now, once a request comes to the particular region, now they are going to examine the URL of the request. And now here we say if the request is for say contester.com/image, it will forward it to the image server pool. Now, say even here in the image server pool, then I can have multiple image server pool, and then I can load balance the traffic. Right, so here the load balancer comes to the picture, and it will be the front end load balancer. Same way here you can see, say request comes to say video server pool here, right, and from here now I'm having some internal load balancer which will forward the request to either this database VM or second database VM or the third database VM. So here in the top we have traffic manager, then we have application gateway where I can have URL based or multi-site routing, and then I can have load balancer which will forward the requests further in the particular subnetwork, right? So this is what to distribute the traffic across the region. This is to distribute the traffic across say various, you can say server pools over there. And once for the server pool, we have multiple machines. So here even you can use load balancer over there. This is what all of these things as a, and even I can run this application firewall, application gateway as a WAF, web application firewall mode. So they will detect the malicious activity and they'll block the traffic here.
All complex stuff, I definitely see.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, with that being said, like, okay, so what's been the biggest nightmare project you've worked on with an Azure deployment?
Say, I worked with few of the government projects over there, right? And that time I had worked heavily with this hybrid connectivity, right? So they just did for any of the reason, right? Say government of India reasons or what, they don't want to put the data in the cloud, right? And so that time, like, you know, we want data in on-premises, we want Active Directory users in on-premises, right? But then they want workloads in Azure, they want to use some Azure cognitive services, right? And they want to use some artificial intelligence of this Azure over there. And that time, even depending on the various, see these image pools, like, you know, if request is coming from for the particular documents, we want to forward the request to a particular image pool. And if request is coming for say video KYC, right? Say government of India performs this KYC verifications, right? And they need a video KYC. So that time we have a video server pool, right? And here this is how we distribute the requests across here application gateway. And also for any incoming request, we use application gateway with the firewall mode, right? Obviously, we didn't have the traffic manager that time because it was hosted only in this India region, right? So we don't need traffic manager over there. But then we have used application gateway and this load balancer over there.
Sure. What's the best and the worst tech advice you've been given? Give me start off with the best first. We'll start off being positive.
So someone told me, and even I believe, like, you know, say the knowledge of 10 new technologies are better than 10 years of experience, right? It is best, right? But if you take it in another way, it is worst also, right? Say, you know, Azure, you know, say Microsoft 365, right? And it is good for you. You are on the cutting edge, right? You know how industry works, where industry is going, right? You talk about artificial intelligence, machine learning. It is good, right? It will provide you extra edge, right? If you know all of these things. But at the same time, if you are unaware of how MOS 2007 was working, right? And what was this 15 hives and all those things, and you just simply jump on Microsoft 365. So even it could be a nightmare for you also, right? So the best and worst is the same, right? 10 years 10 new things are better than 10 years of technology, right? So
Yeah,
you have to
that's-
play very carefully. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And sometimes people, I've got 10 years of experience, but it's almost been like, well, wait a minute here. I'm really looking for, say, 5 years of experience, but also these are the 7 technologies which we currently use.
Right, correct.
I'll go along with that. Where do you want to be in 5 years?
Playing with Azure only and doing
what you're
something.
doing now? The dream job already.
Yeah, no, but playing with Azure, some new features, new services, and we don't know after 5 years what would be the future of the cloud, right? But yeah, you can find me hanging around with some cutting edge technologies, right? And having some research or doing some project management, not project management, but some solution architecting, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Out of interest, did you do a Pluralsight course?
I had one, but now because of some reason, it's not there.
Right, I thought you had one. Yeah. Okay, on that. All right. So, final. Where do you sort of like find a lot of your knowledge? Where do you source a lot of your knowledge to get to this level?
Yeah, so almost I use all the channels, right? I just go to this Microsoft Learn nowadays, right? And even I use LinkedIn Learning, I use Channel 9, and for Azure, I use Scott Hanselman's Azure Friday, right? Sometimes I read books also, right? Sometimes I read case studies or say some white papers posted on Microsoft Docs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I go with LinkedIn Learning courses, right? So yeah, almost all the source. But what I think is like, you need to you need to take a deep dive, right? You need to spend time, right? And you have to spare quality time to update yourself, and you should update every week, right? You should know. My goal is like, every week I spend 2 to 3 hours to learn something new, right? Even say sometimes you don't get much time to go through all the examples and demos and all those things, right? But if suppose new services launch or the service which I'm not aware of, I'll spend 2 to 3 hours to read about that service and somehow to figure out where it sits or where we are going towards.
Understood. Makes perfect sense. So where can we find you?
You can find me on the LinkedIn, right? Or you can find me on the Twitter also. My Twitter handle is @trainer_Krunal, right? You can connect to me. And LinkedIn also, you can search for Krunal Trivedi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Krunal.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You are very informative. You learn a lot actually, and we do a lot of stuff with Azure, and it is challenging in many ways. But it's when you get it done, it's like anything. When you get it done right, it makes a big difference.
Right. Thank you so much, Peter, for providing me opportunity and counting me in. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good night. Bye.
Thank you so much. Yeah.